That was my crazy rooster. All right, so today I want to talk about millet hay. You may not have heard of millet hay, and I just recently heard about it. We're actually in the middle of a drought here in Colorado, and I've been trying to find feed alternatives for my cattle. And on my last load of hay, I actually went to get some third cutting alfalfa. And look at these deer coming up here, eating all my hay. I have to always chase them away and cover all my hay. And the last load I got was the third cutting alfalfa that I have a little bit left here. And these guys go crazy over the alfalfa. And this time I tried millet hay. And the guy that I bought the hay from, he has a whole bunch of cows, like hundreds of cows. And he says, this is pretty much the only thing he feeds his cows is millet hay. And this is, let me tell you, I kind of have my doubts over this hay. At first glance, it kind of looks like straw. you know, wheat straw has virtually zero nutrients in it. It's not very nutritious, and a lot of times the cows don't eat the straw. So I'm trying this out. It almost looks like it feels really soft, but it has a lot of green to it. Look at how green that is, which is pretty interesting. And actually, if you look at this particular millet hay, it actually has little bits of the millet seed head coming through. It's kind of similar to the millet that you would, feed your canaries or something like that, but it looks like it's a smaller head on this stuff. And he said his cows eat it from end to end. So one thing you have to watch out for when it comes to millet hay, you definitely need to get it tested for nitrates. Apparently nitrates can be toxic to cows. And this guy said he tested it for nitrates and it was okay. Had low nitrates, which is definitely what you want. I've actually seen some on Craigslist. People are selling high nitrate millet hay. Then they said it's safe to feed as long as you don't feed 100% millet hay to your animals, which I thought was interesting. So I've never really had to worry too much about nitrates. I've had a couple other feeds where you have to kind of be careful of the nitrates, but usually like grass hay and stuff like that, most people I'd say don't really test for nitrates unless you get into something like this, the millet hay. Another thing you have to test for in the millet hay is the protein content. And apparently the protein can vary widely from one millet hay to the other. And I think it has to do with the maturity and how you cut the hay. So this has a lot of green in it. This guy said this actually tested to be 10% protein, which is really good. He says he's been feeding his cattle pretty much 100% millet hay, and his cattle continue to gain weight, with, like, if you're feeding them like wheat straw or something like that, eventually your cows will get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier because they don't have enough protein. You need enough protein in the feed in order to keep the weight on your cattle. The other thing I really liked about this is when I went and kind of checked it out for the first time, he gave me a handful of this and I gave it to my cows and they seemed to like it. And when it comes to feed, a lot of it depends on the palatability of the feed. And essentially what the palatability is how much your cows like to eat it. You can have the best feed in the world. As a matter of fact, I've actually had some feed that I gave to my cows and I was like, man, this stuff is green, it's leafy, it smells really good, it looks really good. And I give it to my cows and they just kind of all turn up their nose and they won't eat it, which is really surprising. And I've had other feed, which I thought, this is, I actually bought some small bales once and I thought, man, this is just all solid brown stems. There's no way my cows are going to eat this. And I threw a bale out here and they ate the whole thing. I couldn't believe it. And with a bunch of cows out here, I can kind of show you the palatability of this feed. Of course, the palatability depends on several factors. It depends on what kind of cows you have. So for example, I used to have a Jersey milk cow, and with the Jersey milk cow, it's getting a little windy out here. With the Jersey milk cow, it seems like they have a completely different palatability as far as what they could eat. So you could put stuff in front of these beef cattle that the cows would just love it. They would just eat it up. And my Jersey milk cow would not eat it at all. Look at this little guy, my bull calf from last year. Finally trying to tame him down a little bit. Doing pretty good. He was eating it. Looks like these guys are eating it. Pretty good, pretty good. And keep in mind, it not only depends on the breed of the cow as far as the palatability, the willingness of the cow to eat whatever you put in front of them. It also depends on what you've been feeding them previously. So if you're feeding them really bad grass hay where, you know, they're half starving and they're bawling all the time, you know, they're kind of complaining over the food, you could at that point you could put pretty much anything in front of these cows and they'll actually eat it. So keep in mind, these cows are actually coming off of third cutting alfalfa, pretty much the best of the best as far as palatability for any animal. Any animal goes crazy over alfalfa. So coming off of that, and look at how well they're actually eating this. Pretty good for coming off that third cutting alfalfa. And with 10% protein, that's great too. So it looks like this may be my new feed. The advantage of this is that this feed is cheap. It's about $200 a ton. So, and in the middle of the drought right now, we have crazy hay prices. If you actually go to the feed store and you buy just one of the small bales of feed, they're selling for over $20. I think it was like almost $22 for a small bale of grass hay at the feed store. You know things are getting really bad when they're selling it for that much. And it hasn't been that bad, I'd say, for probably 12 or 15 years, where I saw, you know, this. A lot of times you get these droughts when it's really bad in other parts of the country here in the United States. And what people do is they'll come over here to Colorado and they'll just buy up all the good grass hay that they can buy. And when I first started the season, I actually found some really good premium horse grass hay that was selling for $200 a ton. And the guy had like almost like 1,000 bales, just tons. Just like, as far as I could see, he had bales. I went back 3 weeks later and he was totally sold out. I'm thinking someone came in from another part of the country and completely bought them out as far as all that. So this girl was actually eating too over here. You can see she's preoccupied and nursing. A little preoccupied on mama here, nursing the cow. The other thing you have to watch really closely when you're trying a different feed is the condition of the manure as far as what it looks like. So for example, I'll just show you what is pretty typical of alfalfa. So this is one of the recent cow patties. You can see it's really loose and sloppy like that. And if you're feeding hay where it comes out really clumpy, like little balls, like little lumps, then you have not enough protein, and your cows can actually lose weight if it comes out really hard and clumpy like that, like little balls. I don't know if I have any kind of over here from before. I've had some really bad grass hay a couple times, and it comes out really lumpy and almost like this right here, where it comes out like clumps, like almost has folds in it. And at that point, your cows won't do really good. So this is kind of the extreme where it's like really soupy and sloppy from a really high protein alfalfa, something like that. I was actually feeding that alfalfa that's 14% protein on that alfalfa, and it always kind of gives them the squirts like that. So it'll be interesting to see. This is the very first feeding that I've done on this millet hay. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think it has just enough of the millet heads in here to where they're getting a little bit of the grain in there with the stalk. Another thing this guy said you have to kind of be careful of with the millet hay in particular, he said some people grow it out a little bit too long. It gets a little bit too mature, and you'll get a lot of stalks in the hay. And I've seen that even with grass hay, a lot of times you'll get a lot of stems. And I don't really see any stems in this stuff where it's like really hard and pokey, like this right here. So if you get hay that's like all these thick stems, a lot of times you'll have these like left at the bottom of the feeder. But the guy that I bought it from said that these guys would eat the whole thing. So there you have it. That is millet hay. If you're thinking about doing it, I've actually seen people use this for cows and horses and goats and a whole bunch of other livestock, and they seem to be eating it. It's just kind of weird that it looks like it looks like straw. It really does. And that's the other cool thing about this, is you could actually use it as like a straw substitute. So really you could, you know, pad your dog houses with this if you have like some outdoor dogs. Look at this guy, he's so friendly. Licking my jeans, giving me cow kisses. Yeah. So there you have it. So far, I'm impressed with my millet hay. Brand new adventure here on the ranch. So the other thing is this millet hay that this guy sells only comes in the 4x4 bales, which I can only fit 2 on my trailer, which is kind of a bummer. Only able to fit 2 of the bales. So I'm like, you know, driving an hour and a half each way to get it, and I can only fit like almost half a load. Usually if I'm getting like a 3x4x8 and the 8 feet long bale, I could actually fit 4 in my trailer. So I'm kind of limited by the size of my trailer. If I was to get 4 of these, it would actually be 8 feet wide, and my trailer's not that wide. He actually said that he could stack them too high, but it would be 8 foot tall on top of a trailer. And I thought that would be a little bit wobbly, you know, for that much hay up on the trailer that I have. So that's kind of one of the limitations as far as the millet hay from this particular guy. But I have seen 3x4x8s of millet hay, and it just depends on the equipment that the people have to bale it. So there you go. If you're thinking about doing millet hay, I would highly recommend trying a couple big bales and giving it a shot to see if you can, if your animals will eat it. So far for me, it's been doing really good. Just make sure you test for proteins, make sure you test for nitrates, or ask the guy that's selling it if he's tested for it. And I probably wouldn't buy it unless he's actually tested for it and you know it's safe for your animals. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.